Standing alone in the North Atlantic Ocean lies a land forged by fire and ice. Come with me as I embark on a 10-day road trip around the island to discover the unique natural wonders that this country has to offer. This is Iceland.
Do you feel it too?
After picking up my camper van from Cozy Campers just outside Reykjavik, I took the 2-hour drive north to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. My first stop was a curious mineral water spring which produced naturally carbonated water. With my water bottle full of free fizzy water, I hit the road to my next destination. One of the only golden sand beaches in Iceland, Ytri is famed for being home to eider ducks and sanderlings, as well as home to a colony of seals. Further along the coast road lies Búðarkirkja, a small black wooden church built in 1848, which has amazing views over lava fields to the glacier of Snæfellsjökull. Stopping in the small town of Arnastapi, I took the short walk to the viewpoint overlooking Gatsklettur, a fascinating natural stone arch. The coastline here is characterised by basalt cliffs and eroded craters formed where the lava meets the sea. The rough volcanic cliffs are also home to a number of seabirds during the nesting season, including this pair of fulmar, a relative of the albatross. My last stop of the day was a location I've wanted to visit for a long time, Kirkjufell. Unfortunately, my luck was cursed, as while trying to take a photo on my tripod, a strong gust of wind knocked my camera to the ground, and it wouldn't turn back on. So the rest is going to be filmed on my mobile phone and the GoPro. The next morning I left a grain overcast Grundarfjörður and headed along gravel roads that snaked around the fjords and over desolate moors, before arriving at Kollaglufa Canyon. At 1 kilometre in length and 50 metres deep, local folklore tells how the gorge was dug out by a female troll named Kolla. A 40-minute drive north, on mainly unpaved gravel roads, is Kvítsekur, a sea stack standing alone in the ocean. It can be viewed from a clifftop viewpoint, or there is a path down to the beach for a sea level view. From here, I had a 2.5-hour drive to my campsite for the evening in Akureyri.
Continue on Jovega for 90 kilometers.
Day 3 started in a unique Icelandic way, by discovering a hidden geothermal stream which flowed off the cliff edge into the fjord overlooking Akureyri. While the water in the stream wasn't steaming hot, it was still pleasant enough to have a little dip. This next waterfall isn't recommended for bathing. The powerful Godafoss. A short drive east lies Mavatten, a large lake which has seen a lot of volcanic activity over the years. The area is characterised by pseudocraters, lava fields, geothermal areas and quietly dormant volcanoes, as well as a cracking little cafe serving traditional lamb soup. One kilometre east of the lakeshore is Kvíafjall, a 420 metre high tephra volcano which was formed by an explosive eruption 2,500 years ago. A gravel road leads to a paid parking lot where you can pick up a trail to the top of the crater. From there you can then walk the 5 kilometre circumference of the crater rim, taking in its desolate beauty and the surrounding landscapes it created. Driving over the mountain pass the next morning, I could smell my next destination before I could see it. With the smell of sulphur in the air, the road descended towards the Kvíafjall geothermal area. This otherworldly landscape feels like walking on another planet, with dry, scorched earth, bubbling mud pits and viciously steaming fumaroles dotted around the area. Now in the northeast of Iceland, it was time to tick off another bucket list location. Dettifoss, a glacier-fed waterfall and one of the most powerful in Europe. The road turns south on the remote fringes of the Icelandic Highlands before my next stop of Studlagil. Taking the road to the east side parking lot, a 20-minute hike reveals this unique canyon which is lined with basalt columns. Back in the van, I headed out on a 2-hour drive to the east coast, in the small, remote fishing village of Bogafjordur Estri. During the summer months, a small hill next to the harbour becomes home to hundreds of Atlantic puffins. I was amazed at how close you could get to these cute little birds. They were right next to the walkway, some were even nesting right beneath it. It was a blustery start to day 5, a sign of things to come. My first stop wasn't too far from the campground, so I got there early before the crowds. Taking the path out of the parking lot and over the bridge, the trail headed uphill, past smaller waterfalls and over a narrow footbridge to reach the gorge. At its head, standing at 120 metres tall, is the third highest waterfall in Iceland, Hengifoss. Stopping for fuel, supplies and a hot dog in Eilstaðir, Route 1 took me along the road through the East Fjords. From snow-blown mountain passes, through tunnels, snaking cliff edge roads, and finally down to the sunny shoreline. I made a few stops along the way at some scenic outlooks, including Estrahorn, where I managed to get the drone up. But just a few miles west is my most favourite location in the whole of Iceland. An hour's drive west lies Jökulsárlón and Diamond Beach. In the right conditions, the black sand beach is littered with fragments of icebergs from the glacial lagoon that have drifted out to sea and are washed back on shore by the tide. Look carefully, and you may just spot seals off the water's edge. Just across the road, right next to the beach, is Jökulsárlón. This huge glacial lagoon covers an area of almost 7 square miles and is over 900 feet deep. Amazingly, 130 years ago this lake didn't even exist, but the rapid melting of the Jökull glacier, especially over the last 60 years, has created the lagoon we see today, which is Iceland's largest lake and filled with huge chunks of glacial ice. Taking a little break from the glaciers, I embarked on a hike to the hidden gem of Mullaglufur Canyon. Despite the strong wind gusts, it was a pleasant sunny afternoon. In the parking area at the end of the gravel road, the waymarked path winds over foothills and across a stream before climbing the nose to the canyon overview. spectacular sight unfolded as I got closer. Not too far from the Skaftafell campground, by the side of the road lie these twisted metal girders. These are all that are left of the Skeiðará bridge that was destroyed by a glacial flood following the 1996 eruption of Vatnajökull, which sent floodwater and icebergs sweeping across the landscape. The drive for the next few miles crossed the Sandur, the black, barren floodplain created by the eruption. The road continued through the volcanic landscapes, from the desolate black sand to expansive mossy lava fields. It all had a truly alien feel. Further along the Ring Road, I took the gravel road to Hálefshofði, a verdant green oasis amongst the black sand. The area was covered with bright purple lupins, and I followed the path below the cliffs to the caves on the south side. Millennia ago, this was once an island in the sea, but Iceland's volcanic activity mean it is now securely landlocked and over 2 kilometers away from the ocean. One of the caves is a particular attraction, as a hole in the rock looks like a certain little green fellow from Star Wars, giving it the nickname the Yoda Cave. A few miles west lies Dyrhólaey, which translates to Door Hole after the giant rock arch. There are 2 tiers to Dyrhólaey, the upper tier with the lighthouse, views over the endless beach, and the rock arch. The lower tier has some interesting rock formations and views along Reynisfjara beach. Dyrhólaey is also another location well known for puffins, although I didn't see any on my visit. It was then a short drive to my home for the night, Vík. This small town feels like a tourist outpost. It has a small shopping centre, hotels, restaurants, a campsite, and is a meeting point for a number of tour companies. The town is overlooked with its iconic red and white church, and I was here at just the right time to catch the lupins blooming on the hillside. Down by the black sand beach is a statue called Voyage. This artwork represents the sea trading relationship with the United Kingdom. There is a sister statue in the English town of Hull. The waterfalls would have to wait a little while. After an early start, I headed to the meeting point in Vik for my expedition to visit the Katla Ice Cave. It was a 20-minute drive in a super jeep from Vik to the foot of the glacier. We donned our ice spikes and headed onto the ice for another out-of-this-world experience. After a quick coffee stop in Vik, it was on to Reynisfjara Beach. Known for its unpredictable and powerful sneaker waves, the beach also has basalt column formations and a cave. It was extremely windy on the day I visited, so I didn't stick around for too long. But onto the waterfalls, and first stop is probably one of my favourites, Skogafoss. Whilst tourists from the coach tours stay a distance back, I had my waterproofs on to make sure I could get up close to this 200-foot curtain of water. Luckily the sunshine and wind meant I wasn't wet for too long, and it was on to the next one. Just round the corner, and a short walk up through a picturesque canyon, leads to Cavernafoss. little further along the road, I dropped in at the viewpoint of the easy to pronounce Eyjafjallajökull volcano, which erupted in 2010, causing air traffic in Europe to be grounded for a number of days. Next up was Seljalandsfoss, which was even more impressive in the strong winds. On my last visit, the path behind the falls was closed due to snow and ice, but this time there was no excuse. There was an interesting path leading out from behind the waterfall. Time it wrong, and the gust of wind would dump gallons of water on those walking it. But there was no time to dry off just yet, as following the path below the cliffs leads to the hidden waterfall of Glufrabue, or the Canyon Dweller. Entering the crack in the cliffs, following the stream brings you out directly beneath the 131 foot high waterfall. Heading into the Golden Circle was my final waterfall of the day, the mighty Gullfoss, where 5,000 cubic feet of water cascade over its edge every second during the summer, plunging over 100 feet into a crevasse. Finally, I headed to my last campsite of the trip, which was right next to the geothermal area at Giza, so of course I took the short walk to visit that evening. Driving south from Giza, I passed a number of Icelandic horse farms before reaching Thingvellir National Park. Iceland itself is formed by the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates moving apart, which is why the island is so volcanically active. The plates move by about 2 cm per year. This is best witnessed at Thingvellir, where there is a rift valley, where you can walk between the gaps in the tectonic plates. This dramatic location is also of cultural importance. It was the site of the Alþingi, the Icelandic parliament, for almost 1,000 years. Laws, judgments and executions were all made and passed here. Today the Alþingi is located in Reykjavik, although the Icelandic president does have a summer residence at Thingvellir. It was then time to drive the 25 miles back to drop off the camper van and head into Reykjavik. I first headed to the square at Hallgrímskirkja. On my last visit I arrived mere minutes after the church had closed, so I wanted to make sure to visit this time. At 240 feet tall and built between 1945 and 1986, Hallgrímskirkja is the tallest church in Iceland. Centrally located on top of a hill in Reykjavik, it can be seen for miles around. The design of the church was inspired by Iceland's nature. Basalt columns were a clear inspiration for the facade, and the font looks as if it is carved from glacial ice. It's also possible to head to the top of the clock tower. Buying a ticket and taking the lift to the top is well worth it for the expansive views over Reykjavik and the surrounding area. The next morning I headed to a local bakery and grabbed a snúðar, or Icelandic cinnamon roll, for breakfast, along with a coffee. I walked down towards the harbour, as today I was booked on a whale watching trip. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't on our side, and I came away from a 3-hour rough and windy sailing without any whale sightings. But to compensate, the tour company did provide a free ticket for a return trip in the next few years. So you'll just have to imagine a pod of dolphins swimming by the bow of the ship, or a humpback whale breaching from the sea. back on dry land, I decided to explore Reykjavik. Looking like a spaceship that had just arrived on Earth, I found myself at Perlan. This is an interactive natural history museum which contains a planetarium showing a film about the Northern Lights, exhibits about volcanoes, glaciers and Iceland's flora and fauna, as well as a man-made ice cave. But the roof of the building had the most spectacular views across Reykjavik. For my last night in Iceland, I called in Cafe Loki. I ordered a traditional lamb shank, ice cream made with geothermally baked rye bread, all washed down with a Viking beer. The following morning, I headed back to the airport, past the smouldering volcano, and on the plane journey home, I had time to reflect back on my time in Iceland.